Hello, my name is Anna and I love trying vintage recipes. So today I'm trying 3 budget recipes from the 1960s. All of today's recipes come to us from Betty Crocker's New Picture Cookbook, and I will talk more about this book a little bit later. Welcome to my budget recipes series. All this month I am going to be preparing recipes that are a little bit nicer to your budget. January is kind of the perfect time to do this because it's right after the holidays. Maybe your bank account is a little bit emptier than you'd like. If you haven't watched my first video in this series from the 1950s, I'll go ahead and link that in the description down below. I will be providing a cost per serving for each of these dishes. The way I came up with my cost per serving is that I calculated the amount of each ingredient that I'm using in each recipe. And I'm basing my pricing on the prices at my local Walmart store. Now, I didn't go out and buy all new ingredients. I had some of these things on hand, but just in the interest of providing, a basic price, that's kind of what I'm doing. Walmart is the largest grocer in the United States. I thought that was probably the one that people would have the widest access to. However, I do understand your access to whatever store is going to vary depending on where you are, where you live. Your pricing is going to fluctuate depending on where you live. I'm just trying to provide a little bit of a basic idea on cost for you. With that, let's get started. I'm trying out this recipe for Lumberjack Macaroni, and I love how it says, Mr. James Ford Bell, founder of General Mills, world traveler and epicure, made this dish for us himself in our test kitchens. The assembly of it is very interesting to me, so very excited to give it a try and see how it turns out. So just to prepare a little bit, I went ahead and cooked and drained my elbow macaroni. And I went ahead and popped this shallow casserole dish in the oven. You're supposed to assemble this on a hot platter. I feel the need to be a little more contained. I think I'd have macaroni flying everywhere if I used a platter. This has to happen, it just feels like it has to happen very quickly. It says, spread macaroni out on a large hot platter. Okay. Sprinkle with cheese. So there is my cheddar cheese. Probably advisable to have all of this ready ahead of time. This isn't like assembled in a pan, or it's not like assembled and baked. It's just like done right here. Worcestershire sauce, so I've got that right here. And my chili sauce, interesting, cannot wait to see. Oops, my salt and pepper. So it just says to taste. So I'm just gonna do a little pinch. I know how salty Worcestershire sauce can get. A little bit of pepper. Pour hot melted butter over everything. Mix with 2 forks until sauce is creamy. I've got 2 forks here. I was initially gonna go spatula, but let's try it with 2 forks and see. Oh, what is this gonna turn out to be? Is the sauce indeed going to be creamy? Okay, we're getting somewhere. How long, guys? How long? I grated my own cheese. I find that, and you probably already know this, it melts better than the pre-shredded kind. So I thought I would probably do a little bit better shredding my own. Okay, I'm gonna continue to mix this and I'll be right back. I ended up switching over to a spoon and the mixing went a lot better. Weird recipe. I'm gonna say the sauce got creamier, but I don't think it got completely creamy. I can still see a little bit of cheese in there. At first, I referred back to my ingredients list because I thought maybe I was supposed to use like a processed cheese, but no, it says just like shredded cheddar cheese. So I used the right one. This isn't supposed to be like your smooth, creamy, like Velveeta-y kind of mac and cheese. And I don't even know that it is a mac and cheese. It's Lumberjack Macaroni. So yeah, I'm just gonna give it a try. Let's just start there. Okay. I really like the combination of that chili sauce and the Worcestershire sauce. It gives it like a tangy, savory kind of quality. I think if I wanted to get it like a little bit more well mixed, I probably would save a little pasta water and throw that in. I think that could really help here because there's not like milk or anything. It's just like butter and cheese and sauces. Okay. That is like way different than any macaroni dish I've ever had, but I really like it. I think you would probably, if you're gonna like serve this to someone who's never had it, you might wanna let them know that this isn't like your typical macaroni and cheese. Like this is a little different. Let me grab the cost per serving. I ended up cutting this recipe in half because I do that all the time. I make a lot of recipes. I don't wanna have a lot of leftover. So, I try to make smaller quantities. But the cost per serving on this worked out to be 76 cents. I would put a vegetable with it. I really like peas with like macaroni dishes, like macaroni and cheese dishes. So I think peas could be like a really good, accompaniment to this. I think it could make like a really good lunch dish too. It doesn't take very long other than cooking the macaroni. You just like throw everything together on a hot platter or hot dish. Very interesting. I like this. I think I would make this one again just because I like that like butter Worcestershire sauce, chili sauce kind of combination. So I'm making this Fiesta Tamale Pie, and unfortunately I forgot to hit record when I started browning the meat. But in this pan I have some ground beef, and then I'm also cooking up some ground pork. I'm gonna go ahead and add some diced onion and kind of let that cook in the fat that comes out of the meat. Yeah, it seems like, at least this is how I feel. Since I took my break, I've forgotten a little bit of how to film and make videos. Just like all the little details that you must remember, like turning the mics on, making sure everything's ready to go, hitting record. I will get the hang of it again soon, but yeah, that break left me a little sleepy, I guess. I'm also going to add 1 clove of garlic. Mix in, let that cook. It says to drain the excess fat. There's really not a lot in here, so I don't think I'm going to do that. If you use beef with a higher fat content or something like that, feel free to drain it away, but there's just like, you can see there's not a whole lot in here. So next I'm gonna add my seasonings, some salt and some chili powder. We'll see if I think it's enough this time. It seems like sometimes these recipes go a little late on the chili powder for me. So next I have some canned diced tomatoes. I'm cutting this recipe in half, but I'll have the full recipe in the description down below. Also have some canned corn. So let's stir that all together. I just need to let this kind of heat through a little bit because we're also gonna pour this into a pan and top it with a cornmeal topping and bake it. So this is not the only cooking that I'll be doing with this dish. Okay, so there is my mixture all hot and still steamy and bubbly. If I were making a full recipe, I'd be using like a 9x9 square dish. I'm hoping this is big enough. Don't remember exactly what size it is. And now I'm gonna set that aside and make the cornmeal topping. But I do need a cookbook to do that, so one moment. Oh, I have one more step to do. I kind of wanted to do this, I thought it would be like later after I put the topping on as like more of a decorative feature, but it's not. I have 9 black olives and I'm supposed to press those in the top. I love black olives. I know not everybody does. Or as many of you like to point out my little pun in a previous video, I know not all of you do. That was unintended, by the way. I didn't actually know that until people started pointing it out in the comments. Anyway, I'm guessing you probably leave these out if they're not really your thing, but I love black olives. They kind of look pretty though, don't they? I'm gonna cover them up. So now we're gonna just do this. So I need to combine some yellow cornmeal, milk, and I have an egg. Whoa. So now I just have to mix this together, it says. I'm gonna whisk it, see how thick it gets. Not very, really. Interesting. Did I do that? I just want to make sure. Yes, cornmeal, milk, eggs. Yeah, all right. I didn't expect it to be quite so liquid like that. So now I'm really intrigued. I can't stop looking at that. How cute is it? Can I pour? Or it says spoon. I'll spoon, I guess. Yeah, we're pouring it. We're pouring it. Betty Crocker, come yell at me. I know she's not real. I still get that as a comment. Do you know she's not real? I do know. I like to be sarcastic and talk about her like she's real. New people, I promise I'm not this cranky. Sometimes I just get comments that are like the same thing over and over. Right there. And it says sprinkle with cheese. So I just have some sharp cheddar cheese here. It does say, yes, cheddar cheese. I have to kind of pay attention a little bit in some of these recipes because some of them do use like a processed cheese and I want to make sure that I'm getting the right one. That is kind of pretty. I like that. And I'm really excited to see how it's going to turn out. So I need to bake this for an entire hour in a 350-degree oven. Look at how nice and brown that got. I'm so pleased. I think it looks really pretty. The top got nice and toasty. I kind of like the olives like peeking through a little bit. I think that's super cool. But now I gotta give it a taste. So let's dish just a little bit up. I'm gonna make sure I get an olive. I must. Yes. Just kind of like taking a peek. That's super interesting. Nice thin layer of like a cornmeal topping. And any like juice that was in there kind of like absorbed, did its thing. Still super hot. I even let this cool for a couple minutes. Let's see what we can do. Ooh, the top has just like a nice crispness to it, like the top layer with the cheese. That is good. Okay, I like that. I'm gonna cut around the olive so I can get to it. Yeah, I want that olive. That is pretty dang good. I like to boost the spice. I mean, I think if you watched my last video, if you watched some of my old videos, you probably know that. Salt-wise, perfect. Probably perfect for like a family with kids. You know, there's like not really a lot of spice to it. I personally would like to add more chili. If you use those like fire roasted diced tomatoes that I've talked about before, I think that would be a good addition to this. But frankly, like it is pretty darn good. It's just a really nice combination of flavors and textures because you have sort of like the crisp top layer of that cornmeal. It gets a little bit softer underneath, more like if you would get an actual tamale, like the texture of that. And then, you know, you've got your corn, tomatoes, beef. To me, something like this is kind of like a crowd pleaser too. There's maybe some things in it, especially the olives, that I think people wouldn't like, but I don't know. I feel like a lot of families would probably go for something like this. And it really wasn't that hard to put together. And I had nearly all of the ingredients. I think like the pork sausage, not something I would normally get. I don't eat a lot of pork sausage, but everything else, you know, if I have ground beef in the freezer, this is something I can just like put together super easily. Let's get the cost per serving. And there is something I have to touch on. This Fiesta Tamale Pie, if you make a full recipe, which I cut it in half, so like put that aside. If you make the full recipe, it says serves 6 to 8 people. So the cost per serving is going to depend on how many servings you're getting out of this, right? So if you make the full recipe and you want to serve 6 people, your cost per serving is going to be $1.94. So under $2 a serving. I think that's pretty great. If you have 8 servings, it's going to be $1.46 per serving. So that's, I mean, I think that is pretty great. So the one that I made here, because I cut it in half, I would say 4 servings. This looks like a 4 serving situation to me, like where I would cut it in half and cut it in half. But it really depends on how the appetites in your family range, how many people you have, that kind of thing. I liked this one a lot. And I think that like cornmeal topping could go really well on some other things too, like that chili con carne. If you have that left over, I made that last week in my 1950s budget video. You could put that on the bottom and put the cornmeal mixture on top with the cheese and have like an entirely different dish. I love that. Mix and match, let's do it. Now I'm trying out this easy Denver sandwich, and it is basically a Denver scramble in sandwich form. First things first, I need to melt just like a little bit of butter in a skillet here. Okay, and now I'm gonna add a little bit of diced green pepper and a little bit of diced onion and let that cook in the butter until everything softens. So while that is sizzling away in the pan, I'm gonna turn my attention this way so that I can get my eggs ready to go. Well, egg singular, I'm only making one sandwich. Egg and just a little bit of milk. So that's where we're at now. Just a bit of diced ham. Get that in there too. It says to mix all of this together. Some salt and pepper. So I'm just gonna do a little pinch of salt, a little bit of pepper, and I'm gonna whisk that up. Let's return to the pan, shall we? This is softened. It's starting to brown a little bit. It's fine. I'm gonna prepare a couple pieces of toast. So I'm gonna add my egg mixture to the pan. Ooh, it looks good. And I'm just gonna kind of scramble it a little, cook it, move it around the pan. I'll probably try to corral everything into a vaguely sandwich-like shape. love an egg sandwich, don't you? Is this the most groundbreaking, creative meal you've ever eaten? Absolutely not. But I just wanted to kind of remind people that simple egg sandwiches, simple things like this, they exist and they make perfectly good meals, dinners, lunches, whatever. I think we sometimes forget about stuff like this, you know? First off, you know I want to put cheese on this, right? I think I said that in the video where I made the actual like Denver scramble as a breakfast, but I'm gonna try it as is. Maybe it doesn't need cheese. I don't know. That is really good as is. The ham provides a lot of like nice salty flavor, but the combination of the green peppers, onions, ham, like it's classic. It's classic, right? I don't know that it needs cheese, but I wouldn't mind putting a little like hot sauce on this or something. Maybe some sriracha, that would be really good. Good. Good, solid, easy lunch. You can make this into a breakfast sandwich. You could even eat it for dinner, whatever you want. It doesn't take a lot of time and it doesn't cost very much. So I made one sandwich. The full recipe was enough of the egg mixture for 4 sandwiches. So my cost per serving is gonna include enough of the egg mixture to make 1 sandwich plus 2 slices of bread. That was the 2 slices of bread not included in the recipe, but I mean, it's a sandwich. I'm gonna put it on some bread. Grand total on the cost per serving of this Denver sandwich, 70 cents. So under $1. Makes a really good quick lunch, I think. I'm gonna eat this for like, this is my lunch. I think I'm gonna put a little fruit on the side to go with it because I think that would just kind of accompany it nicely. It's very savory. But yeah, don't forget about stuff like this. Betty Crocker's new picture cookbook was published in 1961. And as you can see, my copy, not in the best condition, but I still absolutely love it. This cover is one of my very favorite Betty Crocker covers. I think it is so different from the picture cookbook, which I have covered Betty Crocker's picture cookbook from 1950 with the red and white cover. So recognizable, like so Betty Crocker. Betty's signature color is red, kind of, and this is just, it's pink, it's blue, it's yellow. I mean, it's springtime. The mix of like photographs and illustrations. So you can see right here that this is a cookie jar that is drawn, but there's real cookies inside of it. You can see there's a real cake on a real cake stand with a server that has been drawn on. It's such a different cover than the other picture cookbooks. So I have a binder edition of this book. I love a binder, you know that. And you know, you can see you have the handy tabs. And there's something I wanted to sort of point out here on the front inside cover. It says, "You'll love the look of this new cookbook. The size of its brightly patterned cover was carefully planned to fit your kitchen shelf. Its wide-spaced columns make pages so easy to read. Today's most popular recipe style is used, featuring the list of ingredients followed by the directions." You may have noticed in some of the previous Betty Crocker cookbooks that sometimes the recipes can be a little all over the place. It's more like the ingredients are incorporated into the instructions. So that was something that was different about this cookbook in 1961. You know, they really decided to go with a more consistent recipe layout. And that's something I always love to look at, is the different types of recipes and how they're arranged. It's not something that you always think of, but I guess because I look at cookbooks pretty much every day, I notice when they're a little bit different. For me personally, this is like my favorite way to read the recipes because I tend to not miss out on ingredients when they're more incorporated throughout the recipe instructions. You know, I have to read through, I have to make sure that I get everything going. So this book has a really nice mix of both color photographs, black and white photographs, and illustrations. So just, this is an example of some of the color photographs of some quick breads. Lovely, lovely. But then we also have some little like illustrations kind of in the margins here and throughout. And I love that, you know, they incorporate black, white, and blue, you know, instead of the black and white or black, white, and red. You know, it really color coordinates with this cover. Oh, they do have some, I lied, they do have some black, white, and red in here, but I do like that they have blue as well. Is this supposed to be Bing Crosby? I just noticed that. Am I wrong? Is that like a caricature of Bing Crosby? Anyway, I feel like I don't see this particular cookbook quite as much as I see the picture cookbook. I think that one really sticks in people's minds like a lot as like the one that maybe they had as a newlywed or their mother had or their grandmother had, more so than this one. But I just, you know, I really do enjoy this one as well. Every tab has a different illustration on it. I love this one. where, oh, she is very beautifully dressed as what looks like maybe her husband's coming home from the office. Oh my gosh, look at this. Look at this party. I think it's the same woman. Once we get to these individual tabs with the different subjects, you know, the different foods or courses, the next page opens with what every cook needs to know about. So this one is what every cook needs to know about eggs. You know, how to buy eggs and cook with care. Serve with flair. Serve with flair. New adventures in egg cookery. Then you have your recipes. You know, what every cook needs to know about main dishes. And it has kind of the same thing. It has, every single one seems to have a serve with flair section, which amazing. I love that. Let's serve everything with flair. My recipes came from the main dishes chapter. And I went specifically with main dishes because I wanted to focus more on things that were entire meals. You know, we have sections on meat and fish, and that's usually just like how to cook a roast, how to fry some cod, that kind of thing. Those might not be quite as cost effective depending on what you're doing as like a dish that incorporates more than one type of food. When you have your main dish section, it's gonna be more like casseroles, that kind of thing. So the 3 recipes I made today started with Lumberjack Macaroni. What an interesting recipe. So I chose this recipe for a specific reason. When I believe it was also in the 1950 picture cookbook that I covered quite a while ago. I made a full day of meals from that book. If you have not checked it out, I'll link that video in the description down below. A few of you, I believe, said that you've made the Lumberjack Macaroni and it was like a staple in your house and you really liked it. So I thought I better check this out. What an interesting recipe that was. It kind of reminds me of the way that I learned how to make fettuccine Alfredo. It wasn't like making the cream sauce and tossing the noodles into it. It was more like cook your fresh fettuccine, save some of the pasta water, add butter, add your Parmesan, that kind of thing, and then you toss it together. So it's kind of that method without the pasta water. But I will say, I think that that particular macaroni dish would have benefited from maybe just like a 1/4 cup of like saving that starchy pasta water to help everything adhere to the macaroni. I think I would try that again and kind of like incorporate that little trick just to see what happens. Taste-wise, this was such an interesting combination of flavors to me. The butter, Worcestershire, and chili sauce combo, like not something I would ever think to put together. It really was good. It was kind of like savory and tangy. These portions were small, and I think they were small for good reason because like once I kind of got into eating that, I thought it was tasty, but that flavor can actually be a little bit overwhelming if you eat a lot of it. You know, I got a few bites in and I was like, I'm kind of done here. That was such an interesting dish just from the way that it was assembled to the flavors. You know, dish number 2 was Fiesta Tamale Pie, and I think that honestly was my favorite. Really enjoyed that. I feel like I've kind of had something similar, but it's really been a very long time since I've made anything like it. Loved that cornmeal topping with the cheese. It just got that like a very thin, crisp layer that you could kind of like cut through and break through, and then you would get to that like softer cornmeal underneath that was more like a tamale. And then the filling, you know, the meat, the tomatoes, the corn, if you wanted to spice it up, you certainly could, but I think it's a great dish for people who can't, you know, don't like spice, can't handle spice, or maybe a great dish for kids even. It says that this makes, the Fiesta Tamale Pie makes between 6 and 8 servings. So again, it depends on your family, it depends on people's appetites. I just really enjoyed it. It reheated really well. I gave some of it away and then I saved, you know, 1 serving for myself. It was also really affordable for like more of a complete meal. I don't think you need to put too much with it. If you were going for like the 8 serving way, $1.46, like under $1.50 for a meal is great. You know, you could add an extra vegetable to it if you would like, but yeah, I loved that one. I will definitely make that one again. It was so good. And then finally, that easy Denver sandwich. And some of you may be thinking, this was too easy. This was barely a recipe. You know, I included it because I feel like it's a simple, humble egg sandwich is not something that maybe we always remember and always think about when we are trying to plan meals, but it's so delicious. And like most of the time, I personally would have most of those things in my fridge or pantry or what have you. So it's like also a very quick thing that you can put together. Sometimes we forget. So that is why I decided to have that one in there. I thought this was all a very good combination. I ended up not eating, I think I said I want to put cheese on this. I ended up not putting cheese on it. It had a lot of flavor just as is from the vegetables and the ham. But yeah, if you wanted to add cheese, you certainly could. You could add whatever condiments. Some people like ketchup on their eggs. I'm more of a sriracha on my eggs kind of person. Don't forget about stuff like that. I think I said that earlier. Don't forget about the humble egg sandwich. All right, so those were some 1960s budget recipes. I'll be back next week with a whole other decade. I hope this video provided some inspiration for you, or maybe reminded you of a recipe that you haven't made in a while. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you'd like to see some additional content from me, you can join me over on Patreon. I'll leave a link in the description down below if you're interested. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.